Risk management. This is literally the most important aspect of the entire trading game. Okay, there are not a lot of things that I can guarantee within the trading space, but what I can guarantee is as follows. You will be guaranteed on losing your fucking underwear and losing a lot of money, losing loads of capital before realizing that risk management is something you need to take into account. Risk management, simply explained, helps us protecting our money, avoid big losses, and helps us make much better decisions. You also need to understand that when it comes to risk management, this is the only thing, the only edge that we have towards the competitors, that we have towards the market. Because again, us small fish in an entire sea, we are battling against the biggest banks with the most amount of capital, money, tools, resources, the brightest people with the craziest programs, so to say. And we need to protect our money because again, there are a couple of variables that we can control when it comes to risk management, and there are obviously a couple of variables that we can't control. And that's unfortunately where the probability comes into play. Okay, actually trading has a lot of similarities with, for example, poker. If you happen to play poker, you can have a best setup, you can have pocket aces, but you can still potentially lose your underwear, okay? When it comes to the variables that we don't have any control over, the outcome of the trading setup that we want to play, the outcome or the direction of the market, of the price, of the asset, where it wants to go to, whether we want to go up or whether we want to go down, that's up to the market makers to decide. However, when it comes to the variables that we can control, there are a couple of them, and we can split them up as follows. And this is something that we need to try to control and we need to try to exploit. Because if we focus on these elements or aspects within risk management, we tend to make well-informed, much better decisions and educated guesses, you know, instead of gambling, which is something you should always try to minimize. So the first of them being the technical aspect of trading. When it comes to the technical aspect of trading, of course, then I'm also referring to performing a technical analysis, the level of price action, the skills that you have, skills, insights, or in price action, resulting in, you know, a better technical analysis. Because based on our information, based with the skills, based with the insights that we have of the so-called price action, we can perform a technical analysis to the best of our capability. That's something that we can control, because certain lines, certain levels, certain zones, that's something that we can draw, but we only want to draw these properly, of course. And in course of time, you will get better at this. So when it comes to the trading aspect as well, then simply put, we can control, we can influence where we want to take the entry. We can decide ourselves without having a gun on our head, like, hey, we can decide whether we want to open a long position 3100 or 3200. I'm just in this case referring to Ethereum because we have opened the Ethereum chart. We can decide the entry ourselves. Okay, we are not obligated, we are not obliged to take a specific entry at a specific level. We are solely responsible ourselves for this. We can also decide, of course, the stop loss or the invalidation. Again, this is, of course, an emergency break. And then we can also decide the so-called take profit target, which is the level where we eventually want to realize our profits. Last but not least, and this is something that I will explain after this part of risk management, because it's a crucial aspect within risk management as well, position size. And this is a very simple correlation. The bigger the position, the more you can potentially win, but the more you can potentially earn or lose as well. Very simply put, you need to understand that when it comes to positions, for example, if you've got trader number A and you've got trader number B. Trader number A plays with 5 Ethereum, but trader number B plays with 50 Ethereum. Same setup, same plan, but obviously, as the position size is times 10 between these two traders, this person can earn 10 times more, but he can also lose 10 times more when it comes to the monetary value, of course. It also depends on the account size of the respective person, but that's something that you should just need to take into account. However, these variables, when it comes to the technical aspect of trading, this is something that we can influence. Okay, so that's very important. When it comes to the other aspect, and this is one of the important ones as well, this is the emotional or the mental aspect. Very underrated, okay? Overlooked by many people. Emotional mental aspect of trading. And this is something, even though it's very difficult and many people tend to fail here, so to say, there are a couple of things that we can definitely influence on, because we are talking about our internal world, okay? Our internal world, our emotions, our feelings, the thought processes, etc. So when it comes to emotional control, self-control, when it comes to discipline, being disciplined, okay, this is something that you can create, I feel like, okay? Sometimes, you know, I feel like, you know, you either have it or you don't have it, but you can definitely get yourself in a situation where you can somewhat, you know, create the discipline. However, I'm going to give you somewhat of a guide or a tip which helps you with the emotional or mental aspect of trading. And then obviously, this is very important as well, never trade recklessly. This is very important as well. So we've got the technical aspect, we've got the emotional or mental aspect of trading. However, you need to understand when emotions, feelings, thoughts comes into play, to a certain extent, we leave or we give ourselves some room for interpretation. If we don't define, if we don't have a checklist, if we didn't define our trading system, so to say, and you're just like, okay, this is a zone, I will just play it like this. No, you should be focused on pretty much becoming a robot when it comes to decision making, okay? You need to be very consistent with your decision making skills, because if you've got a system, you've got a checklist, this, and this needs to be respected, which leads to a potential trade, then you will become somewhat more robotic, and then you can make educated guesses or the best goals. Also, when it comes to this one, and this is something that I actually didn't mention, mindset. With which intention are you actually taking the trade? Or are you entering the trading space? If you're a rookie, I will just be very honest with you, you will never, ever get this one crazy trade where you will become a multi-millionaire overnight. Okay, that's something that you can already put out of your thoughts, because you need to understand that if you're entering the space, the trading space, the trading realm with this intention, like, okay, I'm going to trade, I'm going to go heavy with the risk, I'm going all in, and I need to make 10, 20, 50, 100k, 1 million in one trade, you are going to over risk and you're going to gamble. Versus the person that is, you know, sound, that is mentally stable, so to say, and has the intention or is aware of the fact that he needs to give himself some time, whether it be weeks, months, or even years, to become profitable, okay? If you're very disciplined, if you're very serious about the grind, if you're doing everything that you can possibly do, yeah, within your zone, within your field, so to say, that's how you can really become profitable on the longer term. The real goal as a beginner is not to make profits right away. You need to make loads of mistakes. You need to learn from the mistakes. You need to gain experience and lose as little money as possible. That's the main goal. So that's what I mean with mindset. Money always comes later, guys. You need to understand money is a byproduct of making correct decisions, being disciplined, being emotional, disciplined as well, and just, yeah, be consistent with whatever you do, man. So right now, even though we have our feelings and our thoughts, and we are just not robots by default, we can lessen the impact of these thoughts and emotions or feelings, so to say. This will never ever disappear. We can never eliminate this. Never ever ever. However, you can lessen the impact of this. And even though I formulated a little bit weird, allow me to elaborate. We obviously can lessen the impact. We can become more consistent with our decision-making skills and give our feelings or emotions less power by defining the scope within where we want to operate and defining the rules, okay? The so-called rules of thumbs, the rules of thumb regarding our trading system, okay? And that's very important. So trading in itself can already be very chaotic and emotional. We just need to be very clear on what we want to see, how we operate, how we guide ourselves on a day-to-day basis, okay? Because with these rules of thumb, we give ourselves some guidance. It provides structure, peace of mind. We have clear guidelines, and we are not acting impulsively, okay? And that is very important. So let me just give you a couple of rules of thumb that I apply myself. The first one being risk a maximum of 0.3 to 1% per trade. And even though it's very cliche to say, I would highly advise, again, We are not here with the intention to become millionaire overnight. You want, one of the main goals, again, not to repeat myself too much, but it's very important. Risk management is so crucial, guys. You want to make as many mistakes as possible, okay? But you want to keep your tuition fees as low as possible. This is the number one rule for everyone. Trade. For sure, engage with the market. That's how you learn. Make as many mistakes as you can possibly make. Not by simply just clicking random buttons over here. That's not what I'm implying. But what I do imply is that whenever you're trading based on price action, try your best. Do your best. Trade whatever you see. Reversals, continuations, just act accordingly, okay? But make as many mistakes. Embrace the mistakes, learn from these mistakes, but keep your tuition fees as low as possible, because you need to understand whether you trade, for example, with $200 or somebody trades with $20,000. There's no correlation, as in if you've got more money to risk, then you will be learning more. There's no correlation. Somebody, as a matter of fact, if this person, trader number A, so to say, is much more disciplined within a time span of, let's say, a year, he has taken thousands of trades versus trader number B, who has taken, I don't know, let's say 100 trades in total in the same time span, then I can guarantee you that trader number A, skill-wise, became much better than this person. Maybe in terms of actual monetary value, he didn't obviously gain much more money or compounded much more than this person, but in terms of skill, on the longer term as well, trader number A will always become more successful than trader number B. Keep that in mind. Very important to understand. Very important, okay? So keep your risk as low as possible, okay? Your money is your ammunition. You want to save as much ammunition as possible. The second one, don't be too greedy, guys. And this one is so difficult, but that's why you need a proper trading plan defined beforehand. Okay, so before you take a trade, you need to understand where your entry is, where your take profit target is, and where your stop loss or invalidation is, because you need a compass. Okay, you need to know the exit plan as well, because if you don't have this, you will become too greedy, and then you will become victim of your own failures, okay, of your own mistakes, and that's not something that you should want to do. Never chase the price. Never chase the price. Also a mistake that I've made so many times, but be very careful, guys. Be disciplined, have this emotional self-control, never chase the price. And then I'm pretty much referring to these crazy impulses, yeah, these waves of explosion, so to say. Remember, fear of missing out is a perfect formula of losing a lot of money. Always be disciplined, and just know for a fact that a retracement will always come when the time is due. Okay, very important. Then 4, give yourself a stop loss limit, so to say. Stop after 2-3 losing trades consecutively on a day. Keep in mind, guys, we are not chasing or sprinting a marathon. We are most definitely engaging with a marathon, but we can't sprint it from point A to point B, so to say. Okay, step by step. Don't trade 30 fucking times a day. It's not needed. Sometimes it's just very difficult to always throw 6 every single day, okay? Sometimes you have good days, sometimes you feel a little bit better, or sometimes you have bad days. Sometimes you feel very euphoric, everything happens to go your way, and then everything doesn't go your way. But this is also very important, you know? Everybody can win, but not everybody can cope with losses. And that's very important, because you need to understand when you're losing multiple times consecutively in a day or in a very short time span, this has a negative impact on your mental or your mindset or your state of mind. You're going to be in your feelings, you're going to be salty, you're going to make the trades based emotions. Again, you're not becoming objective anymore. You're impulsively trading, which is never a good argument to take trades. And trust me, I'm the number one of this. I was a donkey. You know, I made many mistakes. So this is very important as well. Also keep in mind, you don't necessarily want to catch all the single moves, all the moves that go up and all the moves that go down. Sometimes no trade is also a trade. chill. Next time, you will definitely find yourself a trade whenever time is due. Plan your trade and trade your plan. This one is also very cliche, but very important, guys. At a certain stage, and that's the difficult part of trading as well, you need to understand that you can only learn by engaging. You can only learn by doing, okay? Also by driving a car and learning for the theoretical part, but also for the practicality. I mean, I can learn the entire book from A to Z, you know, with all the traffic rules and all the signs and blah, 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 blah. But when you're driving yourself, you're putting yourself in entirely different situations. You're experiencing stress, you're experiencing other emotions, which results in potentially wrong decisions. Just be aware, engage with the market, downsize in risk, you know, keep it simple, keep it light, 0.3 to 1% per trade, but have confidence in the system, have confidence in your analysis, and just trade whatever you feel like is proper. And then last but not least, focus on this one is cliche as well, but focus on 1 to 3 risk reward trading setups. Okay, this is very important. So these are the rules of thumb that I usually, or that I apply in order to minimize the emotional or the mental aspect of trading. Because again, and then I'm specifically referring to to price number 4, or to point number 4. Whenever I'm in a losing trade or I have a losing day, I feel a little bit bad. What I just do, even though it might sound very cringe, I pretty much need to protect myself from myself. So what do? Instead of just being salty and revenge trading and trying to get my money back, I'm going to remove myself from the environment. I'm just going to the gym. I'm just going for a walk. I'm just going to sit on a bench and enjoy the sun, enjoy the weather. I'm just going to dinner or do something different, because you need to understand all these emotions that you're experiencing right now is just all temporarily. How you feel right now is not how you will feel 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 hours later or 1 day later. You see? So that's very important. Okay, then when it comes to a checklist, and that's pretty much also something that is very important. This is something that we need to create. Checklist for trading. And this is related to the technical aspect of trading. You need to understand, it's just and that's what I meant. I just addressed that we need to become somewhat robotic. Okay, of course, we are humans, we can never be robotic, but especially when it comes to trading, we need to try to become as much of a robot as possible. It's a simple equation, okay? When you have a trading system and you have a checklist, you have certain rules that the market needs to respect in order for you to take a trade. Very simple. When we have 1, 2, 3 being respected, that eventually will lead to 4. Criteria number 1, 2, and 3 will eventually lead to 4. Cause and effect, okay? Check, 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 results in this action. Very simple. So when it comes to the trading, and then I will refer to the reversals. Okay, very simple, guys. Reversals. And this is something that you can just fine tune yourself without, you know, doing something too difficult. Again, I am waiting for let's say I'm waiting for a move to the low being created on the 4 hour. That can be a simple rule, okay? Then I am waiting for a confirmation of a gain on the 4 hour. 2 or more candles that closes above. 3. Step number 3. I am patiently waiting for a retracement towards my level to gain, level to hold or gain, because again, you don't know exactly how deep this retracement or pullback may go. 4, I am going to zoom in on the 15 minutes, and I will wait for a local reversal to be created. 5, take the trade. This, even though it might sound a little bit cringe, by having defined these 5 steps, the checklist for a trade when it comes to reversals, it's just very simple, guys. It doesn't really care what we feel, what we think, what's going on internally. As soon as we see the market respecting the first 4 steps, check, 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 then that must always lead to taking the trade. And that's what I mean by creating a checklist. So hopefully, when it comes to the risk management aspect, it's much more clear for you guys what you can do, which variables you can control in order to manage your internal world better, which will eventually also reflect to taking better trades. Risk management, guys, very important.